Happy New Year, everybody, and welcome to episode 9 of Blackhawks Banter. This is our first episode of the new year. It's also the first day of training camp. So we're pretty excited around here. We do this on Mondays on YouTube Live, courtesy of the Hockey Writers. And you can also follow us on Facebook and be sure to our articles on hockeywriters.com. So subscribe, like, follow accordingly so you don't miss a thing. We're pretty excited around here. 9 days until Blackhawks hockey. I do have if you follow me on Twitter, I am doing a countdown. So it's officially Bobby Hull days until the Blackhawks play for the first time on the 13th. So woohoo, let's get started. I'd like to introduce everybody here. We have Shaun Filippelli, we have Brooke LoFurno, we have Greg Boysen, and I am Gail Kauchak. It's our usual crew tonight. Before we get into the Blackhawks stuff, I would like to give us a little bit of the World Juniors update, a little bit of our fix going on here. As you know, that we do have the semifinals going on tonight. Canada is playing Russia right now. And a little bit later on, we're going to have the USA and Finland. And then tomorrow will be the finals. So it'll be exciting to see what happens. Shaun, I think that you're following. What do we got? 4-0?
4-0 so far. A few minutes into the third. So let's keep that pace up.
All right. Okay. Well, again, before we dive into our Blackhawks talk, I would like to just touch on the World Juniors since it's almost over and it's been a really great tournament. What would be? Let's just comment and go around the table here about some of our takeaways from the great tournament, and we'll start with Brooke.
My takeaway is that USA is going for gold, and I'm really excited. I got my American flag, and I'm just excited. So that's my takeaway. I hope they can get it done. I mean, I know we still have to face Finland, but I'm excited about that. So that's my takeaway.
Excellent. I'm excited too, and I hope that I'm rooting for them. I'm going to be watching tonight and tomorrow, because they're going to win tonight, right? Okay, yes. Greg, what's your, Greg, stop it.
Yes.
What's your takeaways?
I think obviously the German story was real nice to follow and see those guys bounce back and make the knockout round for the first time in history. For a while there, they were kind of reminding me of that Olympic team from a couple years ago that won the silver medal, the kind of little engine that could team. That had Dominic Cahoon on that team and a couple other guys. They were a fun story, but in the end, they just didn't have quite enough talent. It's too bad Lukas Reichel couldn't play. If he was able to play, and if the Red Wings would have let Mo Seider play, that they might have had a little more to say. But as far as the 4 teams in the semifinals before the tournament, if you were to pick 4 teams, you would probably pick US, Canada, Russia, and one of the 2 Scandinavian teams, Finland or Sweden. Sweden kind of does what they do. They look great in the prelims and then disappoint once they get to the elimination round. So looking like Canada's going to the gold medal game unless we have an epic collapse here, but I just don't see that happening. And US should beat Finland, but they're going to need to play better than they did against Slovakia in order to do that. They need a full 60 minutes. They kind of took their foot off the gas the other night when they got up 3-0, and all of a sudden, they needed some late goals to pull out away. You do that against Finland, you're going home. You're playing for bronze. You're not playing for gold. Finland is one of the hardest working teams in the tournament. They are at any level in international. That's what they do. They grind you down for 40 minutes, and then the last 20 minutes, they let their talent take over. That's what they did against Sweden. So if they need to bring it up, but I think they've got the right goalie and they've got a really solid team, so it should be a good game.
Well, I'm going to have to piggyback on that. I am. Team Germany I was really excited about that, and I am also sad that Lukas Reichel, because who knows what they could have done if they had him. They were so close in that game where they lost 2-1. And I'm also excited to see, and I might not be pronouncing it right, Tim Stutzel. Okay, I'm really excited to see him. I think that he's going to play this year with the Senators. He looks really, really good.
Yeah, he's going to be an exciting player.
Yeah. The Senators got a good camp or a good little farm going.
Yeah.
That's what you do when you really rebuild. Just saying.
A few other quick things before we get to Mr. Canada over here. I would like to say, I'm going to go totally unsportsy for a minute here. I think that Team Germany also had the best uniforms of the entire, by far, the entire tournament. Those things were really sharp. And a shout out to the Canadians, maple leafs on their socks. Those are pretty nifty.
Those are so cool. Yeah.
Yeah. So Shaun, we saved you for last since you are the Canadian here and the Canadians are highly favored. So what is your takeaway so far from the World Juniors?
Well, listen, as much as I love the sock shutout, because I'm super pumped about those two. And I mean, maybe it's because we don't do a lot of cool or unique things with our jerseys up here in Canada. So seeing something like that was refreshing and nice to see. But, despite Canada, as we spoke about, currently still leading 4-0 in their semifinal game and hopefully en route to a final, which I will say I hope is against the U.S. to give us our own storyline on this show. Yeah. That's not the narrative I'm fixated on. I mean, like you, Greg and Gail, I'm going to say Team Germany. Call it a bias because of Reichel and our added attention towards the team, but that was just a fun story to watch. I mean, these guys were underdogs coming into this thing. They were short players from the get-go. They got pummeled by Canada 16-2 after an already disappointing loss the night before. They could have packed it in right there, but they didn't. I mean, they bounced back. They won their next two games. As Greg said, they made it into a playoff position, into a playoff game, and they fought. They were passionate, they played well, and they battled. And again, cliche, but they did it. And they didn't have to. They could have packed it in, like I said, but they chose to go another route. And that says a lot about them as athletes, as a nation, and for us to look forward to some great things in the years to come from that program. Even as a Canadian, obviously, I enjoy going into these tournaments and being favored. But at the same time, I'm a sports fan. I'm a hockey fan. I like seeing competition. So as other nations do well, it lifts the play across the board. So it's cool to see teams like that do well. Team Germany has to be my storyline so far. Hopefully by the end of this thing, it'll be Team Canada, lifting their own gold medals again. But for now, Team Germany's got my vote on this one.
All right. Yeah, it's definitely been a fun tournament. It's definitely worth it so far. A couple more days to go. All right. Well, let's dive into our Blackhawks talk now that we have that out of the way. I definitely wanted to bring that up. But I think the biggest news was yesterday during the Bears game, but also one day before training camp. The Blackhawks and Dylan Strome finally came to an agreement. So Strome signed an extension yesterday afternoon, 2 years, $6 million, which is $3 million annual cap hit. So let's discuss this. What do you think of the Strome deal and the fact that it's finally done just all the way around? What do you all think? And we are going to start with, who are we starting with? Greg, go for it.
Okay, I get to go first. Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's about what I think when we discussed this a couple of weeks ago, it's about what we all kind of said we would give him. It's a 2-year bridge deal, $3 million cap hit. That's, if you kind of guess, it'd be somewhere between 2.5 and 3 per season. He hasn't earned that long-term contract. It's funny, a year ago, they wanted to sign. A lot of people were saying, "Hey, give him and DeBrincat the same long-term deals," and that's kind of, again, if we're going to rip on Stan Bowman, we have to give him credit as well. It's only fair. I give him a ton of credit for not jumping on him and signing him after last season when he had that good stretch with the Hawks. It's a good deal. He probably got another couple $100,000 because of the necessity that he's needed right now. This is going to be his breakout year. Breakout. I don't know. This is going to be his year where he can show. Is he going to be a middle six guy his whole career, a nice addition to a good team, or can he be the guy that was worth the number 3 overall draft pick? He's going to get his shot being the guy this year. Like it or not, he's your number 1 center heading into the season with Toews and Doc gone. This is his chance. He's going to be Patrick Kane's center likely for most of the season. Who knows who's going to be on the other wing? I know it was DeBrincat today, but it's training camp first day. It's going to change 100 times this season, but he's going to have 2 of the top wingers on his left and right side. If it's Kubalik and Kane or Kane and DeBrincat, whatever it is. This is his year to prove he can be that guy. And if he proves that he can do it, well, then you get him next year for $3 million, and it's a great value. And he's still a restricted free agent in 2 years, so you still have his rights. He'll have arbitration rights at this time around, but you won't lose him for nothing if it works out. And if he's kind of and he's not that guy, he's got a very tradable contract, so it's a good deal.
Great. Shaun, what do you have to add to that? Do you agree?
I mean, yeah, I agree. And Greg already touched on it. I think all of us collectively a few weeks ago when we brought up Strome and what we sort of would predict he'd be signed for, we're sort of all in that $2 to $3 million range. So it sort of falls right in line there. There's really no surprises as far as the deal goes and how this was seeming to shape up. To be honest, my surprise is how quickly this seemed to happen after Bowman came out and sort of said what he said the other day. It's seeming a little bit more pessimistic. And to be honest with you, given reading Bowman's quote and how he was sort of speaking about this being a tough negotiation can obviously sometimes seem like a tactic, but when he came out and sort of said similar words about Crawford, we saw how that ended. I looked at this and thought, wow, this seems to be an interesting foreshadow and a repeat of what we saw there. And to be honest, I was sort of getting prepared for us not seeing Strome back. So as long of a process as this was in general to sign him, the fact that this happened so quickly after that quote was interesting to me. I mean, that would be the one surprise of all of this. The term and the money is not really much of a surprise. To be honest, I might have maybe tried to offer him a little bit less, but perhaps that was the holdup. Maybe they were trying to get him in that 2.5, and he wouldn't budge. So like Greg said, now it's at a necessity. They need him, probably bumped him up to where he wanted to be, and he's got a couple years to prove himself.
Okay, Brooke, what do you say?
I don't know if I'm a big fan of this contract, to be honest with you. Something about it really bothers me. I see what you guys are saying about that's probably where he was expected to, like the $3 million range. I will say I give Bowman credit. I'm with you guys on that for not jumping in on long term, because I did hear that Stan did say that he and Strome's agent weren't seeing eye to eye on contract value. So I do think that was a holdup. I wouldn't have gone $3 million for him though. I am really going to hold Strome really like my expectations for him, honestly. I think he has the most to prove. He held out for this long, thinking his value that I think is more than what he believes it is. And I think Bowman did cave because we're out with Toews and Doc. But so because of that, and because he waited so long and thought his value was a lot higher, I'm really going to just keep my eye on him and hope that he delivers. Otherwise, this is going to seem like the biggest loss that he held out for this long to do this and then not perform. So I want him to live up to that. And I want Stan to be proven right too, that this wasn't for nothing. So I don't know. Something about it kind of doesn't sit right with me, but I think it's more just like the kind of thinking I don't know, even Kubalik got a little bit more than that. And Kubalik, I thought, was more the player than Strome was last season. I don't know. Something about it kind of bugs me, but hopefully he proves me wrong.
Well, and I wonder too if that is where the negotiations finally kind of came together, because like you said, Strome was looking for a little bit longer term, and he said that the Blackhawks weren't. So maybe they compromised by giving him a little bit more money. Instead of 2.5, it was 3 or something. Like that's how they made it all come together. But I would definitely agree with all of you in that I'm just happy that it's finally over, and I'm happy that Strome is here, because definitely he's going to be one of the top one or two centers, and the Blackhawks need him. So it's a perfect segue into our next topic here. As we know, Jonathan Toews is out with a mysterious illness. He basically, his statement that they put out, he said, "I've been experiencing symptoms that have left me feeling drained and lethargic, and I'm working with doctors so that I can understand my condition." So the thing that's really kind of scary about this is how vague it is. And of course, everybody's jumping to all these conclusions. It could be forcing him to retire, or Patrick Kane said, "Oh, I've talked to him a couple times, and we're hoping he can get back on the ice soon." So nobody really knows what's going on. But the long and the short of it is that they're out Toews right now. They're out their captain, and even though we're really, really hoping he's coming back, I thought that this would be a good time to kind of just appreciate Toews a little bit. So I asked us all to, give a nice memory or a nice shout out to Toews. And we're going to go ahead here and start with Shaun tonight.
Yeah, so I mean, you touched on it already, and I think obviously collectively, as hockey fans, let alone Blackhawk fans, clearly we all wish the best for Toews and hope that whatever this is isn't as serious as it's sounding. So hopefully he's back on the ice. He's a big part of the game, let alone the Blackhawks. So let's hope he gets better soon and we see him out there. With that said, very coincidental timing for this particular question, because my brain goes right back to the 2007 World Juniors. That's where my fandom for Toews began. Perhaps maybe not my fellow panelists being on the Team USA side of this memory, but after a hard-fought game between Canada and US that they didn't really accomplish much through regulation, they needed overtime. Still couldn't get it done, so he needed a shootout. After the first 3 attempts, as most know, you can go back to any player you want. So Canada looked to rely on Toews 3 times that shootout, and he scored all 3 times, including round 7, which is when they actually took the game down and won it and propelled them to the finals right on past Team USA and sent them home packing, which is where us Canadians like to see you guys going. With that said, it was a good opportunity to see Toews in action and take a team on his back, which was an amazing foreshadow for what we were going to see in his future as a Blackhawk. So it was a lot of fun to see him sort of take that pressure on and just kind of battle it head on and see how well he could persevere and prevail through that and really kind of take the nation on his back and come out victorious with that opportunity. Another fun memory from that was sort of, I went back and looked at that shootout, and it was fun to see who he was playing against. There was a lot of stars in that game, and interestingly enough, he had teammate Patrick Kane on the other side, who, as most of us know, is a shootout king in the NHL, but leave it to Toews to upstage his teammate on the world stage. So that's my feel-good moment for Toews.
And I think I watched that video too. I want to say that they went to Kane twice and he missed both times. So it's kind of ironic because now he's the guy, So, okay, great memory, Brooke. What do you recall or want to say about Jonathan Toews, our captain?
So like I honestly, I'm kind of like one of those people that loves seeing how players' personalities are off the ice in the content that we see on social media. So that's where my favorite Toews memory comes in, is when he did the taser, what was a moonwalk after they won the Stanley Cup in Boston. And then he and Kane had a dance off in that following July at the Blackhawks convention where Kane had the Kaner shuffle and he had the taser moonwalk. And I honestly love that memory. It makes me laugh every time I see it because Toews has always been regarded as being so serious. And I know he said he hates that nickname, that he doesn't want to be referred to as that. And you could kind of see his personality really show. And I love that. I think it's such a feel-good memory, and it kind of gave us better insight into who he is personally.
Yeah, that was a good memory. I loved watching that too. I remember sitting there and being like, oh my God, look at he's doing the moonwalk on the ice. Okay, Greg, you're next.
When I first saw this story come out, he said he was feeling tired and lethargic. My first thought jokingly was, well, welcome to your middle 30s, pal. It's not going to get any better. But obviously he knows his body better than anybody else, and we're all rooting for him and hoping for nothing but the best. Hockey is secondary at this point. Obviously, it's the uncertainty is what's scary. So as soon as they can kind of put their thumb on what's going on, then we'll all feel better about it one way or the other. My favorite Toews memory, you go back to 2015, that conference final against the Ducks. Those 2 road games, Game 5 and Game 7. He really, Game 5, he scored 2 goals in the final 2 minutes of the game to send it to overtime. Unfortunately, they lost that game in overtime and went down 3-2 in the series. They won Game 6 in Chicago. They went back to Anaheim for Game 7, and he set the tone early by scoring twice in the first period, giving the Hawks a 2-0 lead. I think when they won that game, 5-1 or 2 was the final score. But he took the crowd, he took the team out of it early. He put that team on his back twice on the road, on the biggest stage, and that's just what he's done his whole career. Especially in that era, that 5 or 6 year period where it was just like he could just will the team to victory in the most important spots. But those 2 games in particular stick out, where he was just kind of like, you know what, we're going to do this and you're not going to stop me. And that's just kind of the attitude he's had. And you still see flashes every once in a while, but man, back in those Cup years, they flipped on a switch and they went for it. Those were great memories.
Was that the game where he scored from like behind the goal line?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I love that.
Yeah, those were good fun times.
That was a fun fluky goal.
He's still got it in it. He's still got it in him, which
Yeah,
is where I'm going to come in with my Toews. For my Toews thought, I kind of want to go back all the way to the 2017-18 season when everybody kind of thought Toews was washed up. He had one of his worst seasons, 20 goals, 32 assists for 52 points in 74 games. And then the 2 seasons before that weren't much better. They were both combined 58 points for each one of those seasons. So everyone was saying, oh, he's all washed up and he's done. And he very easily could have, just kind of rode the glory days and done, or just played mediocre until he retired. But he got to work, and he reformulated his game and changed his diet, and worked on a new training regimen. So in 2018-19, he comes back with the best numbers of his career in all three categories: 35 goals, 46 assists, 81 points. You saw him lead the charge in this playoffs that they just recently had. 5 goals and 9 points in, it was only 9 games, but he was on a roll. And like you said, he was leading the charge, and because that's what the captain does, so he doesn't quit. And that's why I really think that he's going to figure this out. He's going to work his way through it. And we're going to see him back on the ice. And I think I can say for all of us that we're totally rooting for him. So with that being said, I'm going to go on to our next segment here. The middle six game that I asked us all in our preview for this post or for this show I listed 6 kind of middle Blackhawks players that I feel are really going to have to step up now that we're out Toews, we're out Doc, we're out Alex Nylander. So I think some of these middle 6 guys are going to have to step up and, play in the top 6 when they might not otherwise. So here's our 6 players that we listed and that we ranked. We have Ryan Carpenter, Matthew Heimour, Matthias Janmark, David Kampf, Carl Soderbergh, newly signed Carl Soderbergh, and Lucas Wallmark. So I asked everybody to rank, 1 being the highest, who's going to make the most impact, and 6 being the lowest, who's going to make the least impact. I don't want us to recount all of our things, because that might take too long and get a little bit too confusing. But let's get to some of the highlights here. So interestingly enough, Carl Soderbergh was picked by all of us to have the biggest impact. And I'm just going to say real quick, and then you guys can kind of put in your 2 cents as well. A 35-year-old should not be the one that's going to give the biggest impact on a rebuilding team. But unfortunately, by default, I think that that's what's going to happen, because he is a center. You're going to have Doc, and you're probably going to have Soderbergh as your 1 and 2, or as your 1 and 2. So by default, he's going to play with higher level players. And I just think that he's going to end up having a pretty big impact, and he's going to have to be. We know that he can do it. 17 goals and 18 assists for 35 points last season, which is higher than anybody else on this list. So that's my reason that I picked him as number 1. Does anybody else have anything to add to that?
I think. Oh, go ahead, Sean.
I was just going to say, I was just going to second what you said, Gail. I mean, he's shown solid production throughout his career. I mean, he hasn't been in a top tier position, but like you said, circumstances is going to grant him that opportunity. And with his solid production throughout, his name stood out for those very reasons. I mean, he's had a good career. So he's coming over here, which is, odd for him fitting into this rebuild, but nevertheless, he's here, and he will have an impact. So he'll maintain that point production. He'll do well. And like you said, he'll play with some players that'll help him do that.
Yeah, I think that 35, 40 point range for a guy like him as your 3rd or 4th line center is very good value. But now, if he's going to be your 2nd line center, 35 to 40 points is not going to really cut it. But that's, again, no fault of his own. He's being put in a situation. Obviously, I think that Bowman knew the Toews stuff was going on when he signed him. That wasn't that I obviously the team knew about it a lot longer than we did. Obviously you don't want to bring in a guy like him to be your 2nd line center, but it is what it is. And he's gonna have to, we'll see. He'll have a good impact on this team, hopefully, but it's not what you want out of that position. You'd much rather have him on the bottom 6, where he would be much more effective and bring a greater value to the team. But again, it's hockey. You're going to deal with injuries. Next man up. Let's see what he can do. If not, maybe one of the kids can take that position away from him, and he can go back down further down the lineup that better suits his game.
Okay, so Brooke, let me ask you. You picked Wallmark. last, and I kind of have high hopes for Walmart. So I'm just wondering, why you picked that?
Well, like, okay, for one, I actually really don't. I had a hard time with this list because I don't see really any of these guys being like a game changer, but I do know that Soderbergh provides kind of reliability and kind of that anchor type thing. So that's why I put him first. But Walmart,
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. From like what I've kind of seen, he's kind of just a kind of one that bounces around, and I don't know if he'll be what we expect of him, but maybe he will. You made some good points about him, but for that list, he was the one that came last to my mind. I don't know why, but like I said, maybe he'll surprise me too. But he is young, so, and I know he does have potential, so I probably shouldn't have put him last, but he was just the one that came to my mind last.
Okay, well, and Greg, I know that you put him last too. So if you want to comment on that, but also you put Heimour second, which is pretty high. High was Heimour. So maybe you can expand on that too.
I'm a big Matthew Heimour fan. I really like him. He was great in Rockford. He would have played in the NHL the year before on the 18-19 season, but he hurt his shoulder early in the year, pretty much took him out for most of the season. I just like his game. I think he brings that energy, that jam that scouts love to say, and can bring a little offense. He's got speed. But when you first sent us this exercise, I kind of just wanted to be my typical wise ass self and just put a 6-way tie, because they're kind of interchangeable. They're kind of, literally half a dozen of one, six of another. Like they're kind of all the same guy. Or at least, there's differences obviously, but they're kind of all going to play the same role. Your bottom 6 guys, your penalty killers. But yeah, I think Heimour has the chance to be the biggest point producer out of that group and be the biggest difference maker as far as drawing penalties or just giving that little extra energy boost when you need it. That's why I put him up there, because I think that's what he brings to the game, a little bit of youth too.
Don't let any of these guys hear this, because they're not all the same, and somebody is going to step up, and we're going to revisit this, and we're going to see who it is.
Well, you can all put it in my face when that happens. I will.
All right.
Eat crow on that one.
Let's move on, because we have a couple other things here that we want to get to. Janmark was chosen second by Sean. So are you going to kind of say the same as Greg here, or do you have something good to say that you feel Janmark is up there?
I will start this by saying we're under 30 seconds in the Canada game. They're up 5-0. So hopefully by the end of this answer, Canada will be on their way to the final. As far as Janmark is concerned, I will say that coming off a Stanley Cup final, I think it positions him in a good spot to sort of leverage that play and that chance he had. He performed well in the playoffs. I mean, he got 8 points, he got a goal and 7 assists, and he's playing through his prime as a 28-year-old. So I think he's just in a position similar to Soderbergh, where he's just poised and right in a natural spot where circumstance will elevate him into sort of kind of a leadership role, not so much a Toews leadership role, but more of a young guys need to look at him and hopefully he'll clean up some of those mistakes and he can play a more structured game. And I think that'll just happen naturally because of his circumstance and his surroundings. So I think he's going to strive with that type of focus as opposed to being overshadowed, which is what I think happened a lot in Dallas because of the kind of player he is and who he had around him there. So I think he just has an opportunity to do that. And as I finish my answer, Canada's on the way to the final. So go Canada, go.
Canada is going to play U.S. tomorrow.
I'd like to take this moment to remind Sean the name of the show is Blackhawks Banter, not Canada Banter.
We have Canadian fans, and as the captain of our Blackhawks is one of the most the proudest of our nation.
I get that, but there's a World Junior show for this. This is Blackhawks Banter.
All right, you guys. All right, stop fighting. Okay, 2 more people that I'd just like to touch on from the this exercise of the middle 6. Ryan Carpenter, who I personally think might kind of be the odd man out because of his age. But Brooke, you actually picked him kind of high up at second. So do you think otherwise?
Well, my thing is because last year they held him in such a high regard, kind of on that 3rd or 4th line, and I think when we signed him to that 3-year deal, that was kind of the point of him. But like you said, now with all these acquisitions, he might kind of be the odd man out. But I still put him there because of kind of like that what's that called? Like the veteran kind of role. It was kind of Soderbergh at 1 and then Carpenter and then Heimour. So I think kind of those 3 combined could have that more mentor type of role, which is why I put him so high up. He could still be effective for what he does.
Yeah, and you know what? I think they actually had him on the second line for a while there too with injuries, and he actually did real well. So okay, yeah, we'll see. We'll have to see. And the last guy that we should talk about is David Camp, 4th line center, reliable guy. But we all picked him 5th, and I'm guessing that that's probably has a lot to do with the fact that he's not really expected to score a whole lot. But Sean, you actually had him at 3rd, which is a little bit higher. So say some positive notes on Camp.
Yeah, I just think this roster's set up to provide an interesting opportunity for the 25-year-old. He's going to have more of a chance this season, again, because of circumstance, to sort of have more of a spotlight on him. And to be honest, I struggled, just like the rest of the panel here. All of these folks could have been tied for this same position. But to be honest, as a last-minute change to my list, to be quite frank, I popped him into 3rd. And I did that out of optimism, because I just think that already being a Blackhawk, he's seen some newcomers come into the system. And I think he's going to take this opportunity to sort of see rise to his game. I think there's a lot of pride wearing a Blackhawk jersey, and he's already been here. So he's seen these new guys come in, and he has an opportunity to prove his worth and prove his value, and really kind of take that opportunity seriously. So I don't think he's going to take it for granted. I think he's striving through an important part of his career. And he doesn't put up a lot of points, but he had decent numbers last year. He had a face-off percentage of 52.3, and career highs in goals and hits and takeaways. And I think he can build on that. So I think it's going to be an interesting year, and I'm just optimistic is really why he landed in 3rd, is because of my optimism for him.
And making an impact isn't always about goals either, and that's where I think that Camp is one of those guys. He was the one winning all the faceoffs except for Toews. Toews was winning all the faceoffs, and then Camp was right there next. So they're going to need him this season for sure, to be that guy. So let's wrap this up with something a little bit more exciting than the middle 6 and talk a little bit about the prospects. We know that this is a rebuilding team that is looking at their youth, and there's going to be a lot of prospects that are going to have a chance to be on the team that might not otherwise have. And we're all excited to see new faces and see who is going to get a regular spot on the roster. So that is the last thing I want to touch on here is, who do you think is your best bet to get a regular spot in the lineup? And let's go ahead and start with Brooke.
I'm going to pick Hagel. I think I've said his name a few times the past few weeks on this show, so I probably should have gone with someone different, but he was the first one that came to my mind, only because he had that one game here before the pandemic. So I think the hope was that obviously that wouldn't have happened and we got to see more of him. But I do think that kind of means he could be kind of a guaranteed, but also because of how he's been playing, he was loaned over to Europe and he's had 15 points in 14 games over, in Switzerland. So, yeah. And because of kind of unreliability with kind of the 6 players that we previously talked about, I think it's his spot to lose, I think.
Okay. Sean, what was your pick for prospect?
Yeah, I'm going to echo everything Brooke just said. Basically, it's really hard to argue the case Hagel's already been making over in the Swiss League. 15 points, 14 games. He's already playing tremendously well to start off this campaign, and I think the spot is his. A controversial stat, in my opinion, plus minus, but the reality is he is a +6, which clearly means he's helping his team more than he's hindering them, which is a good sign in itself. And to be honest, this rebuilding Blackhawks lineup is perfect for a 22-year-old to slot right into. So this is a team that keeps telling us they want to help their youth develop, and with one that's already proving his case, I don't see why Hagel shouldn't have a spot right there.
All right, 2 votes for Hagel, and we're next with Greg.
Well, we're focusing up front.
You better say Hagel.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. I did say forward, so we're not talking about,
because I think today's news with Seabrook on the unfit to play opens up a spot on the back end. Forward wise, though, yeah, Hagel is obviously a good choice. He played really well in Rockford last year. He really, as the season progressed, he went from being kind of just there to being their main guy, and he really got comfortable as the season went on, both on and off the ice. He's a fun player. So he's probably the logical choice. But they've got some other options. A guy like Philip Kershev is a name we hear a lot about, and he was a guy that they are high on. Ice Hogs head coach Derek King loved him last season. Just couldn't say enough good things about him in the postseason press conference call. He raved about Kershev and said that had he not got hurt, he would have been in the league last year. Durability is a little bit of an issue. He had some nagging stuff last year, but he's a guy that should get an extended look. So you got Hagel, you got Kershev, and those should be your top two first-year players this year.
Okay, and the good news is, well, maybe not the good news, but the news for this is it's probably not just going to be one guy. We're probably going to see numerous prospects throughout the season. So I picked Hagel as well for my top pick for all the reasons that you guys picked. I think that he has the potential to score some goals, which is something that they need. But I would also like to mention John Quenville, who actually cracked the lineup for 9 games last season. And he was in 2 games of the postseason, including, if you recall, the last game they played against the Golden Knights, he was up on the top line, which was kind of controversial for that game, but he was there. So obviously the coaches see something in him. And so I think that we'll probably see Quenville up and, he'll have a shot as well. So I don't know. What do you guys think? Anybody else that you want to add?
Well, if we're going to go center, like if we're going to keep going center, then yeah, I would say then maybe Mackenzie Entwistle has a shot too.
Oh yeah, you brought him up before. Yeah.
We'll see a bunch of guys this year, especially as the season wears on, and if the Blackhawks, start trading some of these veteran guys away. We talked about Ryan Carpenter. Ryan Carpenter's a perfect guy for a team that wants to make a deep Stanley Cup run. He'd be a very hot commodity come trade deadline. So his versatility, he makes him the type of guy a team, that wants to make a run would want. So this roster could see quite a bit of turnover as the season goes on. So I think we're going to see a lot of those Ice Hog guys, quote unquote, get their chance, and we'll see what happens. This is the perfect year to let it happen. It's a weird 56 game schedule. There wasn't a whole lot of expectations to win going into it. Now you don't have Doc. You don't, who knows if Toews is going to play this year. So this is the year to do it. You're not letting any fans in the United Center, so your ticket sales aren't going to hurt if you stink out the joint. This is the perfect year to just, who cares about the points? Let's see what we got for the future.
Let the kids play.
Yeah.
This is your foundation year. If you're going to tear it down, this is the perfect way to begin it. Let's see what we got. Identify 2. Your goal should be identifying anywhere from 2 to 6 players that you're going to have in your lineup when you're competitive again. That should be the goal.
Completely agree.
And I did forget to mention P.S. Suter. I asked for us actually not to put him in this list because we all kind of feel like he's a shoo-in. So I'm sure, we're all excited about that. Ending notes, just a few notes from training camp. Apparently Suter actually did not play today. He was considered unfit to play, but I did hear that he was working out with the team. So hopefully he's working out, not on the ice. So hopefully he just tweaked something. And the other thing that you reminded me of, Greg, is that Seabrook was unfit to play today as well. So hopefully more to follow with as the training camp and the week goes on with updates and what's going on there. So that's all pretty exciting. So and that pretty much wraps it up for tonight, guys. We really appreciate you all watching. Subscribe to YouTube, follow us on Facebook, read our articles. We are excited. We're 9 days away from
yes,
all happening. So I hope that you guys and everybody is as excited as I am. So, and remember, go
to USA.
Keep it to the Blackhawks, guys. Keep it to the Blackhawks, please.
All right.
Hey, there's an actual Blackhawk prospect on Team USA.
Woo!
2 of them.
Peace.